Welcome. This is Cheryl from Club Creative. Let's go. G'day. This is Cheryl from onefromall.com, Club Creative, and this is today's lesson. And today's lesson is how to write emotions, creating character emotions. I'm going to get that one week. Remember, you can subscribe below. Okay. Why is it sometimes hard to write emotions into a scene? We start writing what we know will be a strong scene, but then we're disappointed when the scene is not as powerful as we thought it would be. What went wrong? Eric Edson, in The Story Solution, 23 Actions All Great Heroes Must Take, maintains that there are only 4 main characters of emotions in any scene. He explains that the character must not only journey through their character arc during the course of the novel, but also during each scene. For alliterative purposes, he calls these 4 categories mad, glad, sad, and scared, and he offers suggestions for the change in the table below found on his website at see the link underneath or in the article, this article on my website. He suggests that if a character starts the scene in any one column, say mad, he must finish the scene in another column, say sad, glad, or scared, and so on for each of the other columns. Now, he's a screenwriter, but I've discovered that screenwriters have a wealth of information on how we can write better novels if we just go and look for it. We know that every scene needs conflict, and using these emotions gives us the opportunity to write a focused scene. But what if we took it one step further? What if the conflict in the scene was the character's emotion and it stopped them from moving forward with their goal? The character wants something desperately, but they are so furious they get in their own way. Mike wants to pick up his son for his afternoon visit, but the divorce papers have just arrived in the mail. His wife has already threatened him with a restraining order if he gets aggressive towards either of them. He's ready to walk out the door, but picks up the papers one more time. His hands clench and twitch, his face reddens and his nostrils flare. He might kick a chair or slam a few cupboard doors before shutting his door so hard the building threatens to topple. If we think of last week's lesson where a scene is composed of 3 elements, we now have the first 2, goal and conflict. All that remains is disaster with a twist. The reader is set up to expect trouble when he picks his son up. And we could go with that. But what if we let that happen, with controlled rage of course, but let Mike lose it somewhere else from some seemingly simple slight? The ice cream shop doesn't have his son's favourite flavour, for instance. And now here we can let Mike get as out of control as we want and have a disaster, but with a twist. It follows that the stronger the emotion, the stronger the conflict, and the more powerful the scene. One second. Oh, forgive me. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's Australia. It's 32 degrees, which is about 90 Fahrenheit, and it hasn't even started to get warm. I hate summer. Okay, day 2 of summer. Okay. We could go through the process with the other 3 emotion groups, and I suggest you do. But today I wanted to focus on the last, scared. I read something this morning that prompted this post about fear of the dark. We don't fear the dark, we fear what could be lurking in the dark. These are very different things. Darkness is nothing to be afraid of. All it takes to conquer it is a lit match. What is your reader afraid the light will reveal? That's from Kristalin A. Vetovich from Writing the High Vibe Hero's Journey, the Essential Structure to Crafting a Story That Changes the World. Okay, so that's fine. Darkness can be fixed with just a lit match. Except my partner is afraid of the dark, and that's fair enough, and it makes him my resident specialist. So I asked him if that was how he felt, and he said, "The dark, it reminds me of death. But how could it? I've never been dead. It's just emptiness. If you wake up in the dark and can't see or hear anything, you wonder, am I alive or dead?" And that made me think about how all our fears may be different even though they're all labelled with the same name. In this case, afraid of the dark. I now think that being afraid of the dark could mean many different things to many different readers and writers, and how it might be worthwhile to research variations on the theme. There could be thousands of horror or thriller stories in there. So let's talk about fear in brief. Fear is your biological security alarm to keep you from going into unknown territory unprepared. It is not meant to forbid you, and it can be a real friend in times of danger. Fear tells you to think twice before you launch into an adventure without thinking. Okay, if someone suddenly jumped out at you from behind a bush, you would generally have a fear reaction. The fear emotion might be felt as a sense of dread that motivates you to protect yourself. You might react with one of these responses. Freeze. Stand still and hope it goes away. Flight. Run away and or isolate yourself to avoid the danger. Fight. Stay and fight what or whomever. Fright. Scream, jump around and try to intimidate whatever it is. I found an interesting article this morning on the Smithsonian Institute website. That's so not easy to say when you've lost as many teeth as I have to cancer. Anyway, I'll leave a link to that article below, and it's on my website in this article. They point out that the fear response is taken in context to see whether a perceived threat is real. Entering a haunted house on Halloween and being jump scared is very different to walking down a dark alley and having someone jump out in front of you with a knife. It's about the context. Seeing a lion in the zoo? Interesting. Seeing one a few metres from you in the wild? A very different experience. It's about the context. But the next I found fascinating, and this is a quote. An evolutionary, unique and fascinating way of learning in humans is through instruction. We learn from the spoken words or written notes. If a sign says a dog is dangerous, proximity to the dog will trigger a fear response. As writers, then, it is our responsibility to create the context and write it well enough to allow the fear to be so powerful for the character that the reader will not be able to put the book down until the situation is resolved. Okay, that's it for this week's lesson. And, gosh, it's Wednesday. I'll see you tomorrow for writing prompts on, you guessed it, emotions. Thanks, guys. See you then. Don't forget you can... No. I'm so dyslexic with left and right. Bye, guys.